All right. Hi, everybody. This is A7X Fan Ben here with Godmason, and this is episode number 25 of the Pirates CSG Podcast.
Wowie.
So, I know, we're a quarter of the way to 100 episodes, so that's pretty awesome. It's been about a year then. I guess we're coming up on a year if we do it every other week, so wow.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be number 26 because I don't think we've missed one yet.
Yeah, nice. All right, so tonight on the menu for you all listening, we've got some news, and then we're going to go over a lot of customs from, I don't know, at least 5, maybe more than 5 different creators. And then at the end, we've just got a few little brief segments on some rules and combos and whatnot. So it's going to be a shorter episode than the set reviews, but nice variety of random topics. So I'll jump right into it with the news. There's less than 2 months until the deadline for submissions for Ocean Terrain Contest number 3, which is August 1st. So if you make custom terrain or you have interest in making any, you'll want to get that in by August 1st. So if you haven't made much progress, you want to start now, especially so you can get pictures and videos done by then as well. So pretty interesting stuff. We've got at least 5 entrants so far, and other people have expressed interest, so it should be an interesting month of August for that. And then my fan site, pirateswithben.com, has been expanded and improved since the past month. And lately I've been not just blogging every day, but also vlogging. So it's been a video blog lately. I'm trying to do a video blog up to 5 times a week on my YouTube channel, where you can also find the podcast playlist, actually. And so I'm going to look to continue that. And another one that's kind of funky is that eBay prices have been down a bit. There's been some stuff selling for less than we've seen in the recent past. So although it's been more of a seller's market the past few years, that may be changing a bit. And I know you've had a little personal experience with that just recently too.
Yeah, sometime last year, I put up a message in a bottle mail in Mysterious Islands pack. Those are really rare. I've seen them go for more than $60, but for some reason, last year I sold one for like $30, and actually just yesterday I finished up an auction for another, and it went for only $25.
Yeah.
I think the buyers are also drying up as well, because I sold a few things that are really hard to come by these days, and there was one bid on each. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, which is a little bothersome, considering I'm borderline losing money on even having picked up a cheap lot that had those. I mean, I added some stuff to my collection, but still.
Yeah, it has been a little funky lately on eBay, just very recently, just the past 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
And then other news, which we'll get to soon with the customs, Xerix has announced that he's working on a 3rd custom set focused on Bionicle. El Cazador has announced 2 more custom sets in progress. Anchor Arms is doing a custom set, which he's posting a custom a day. So that brings us to 3 people, with Anchor Arms, Xerix, and myself, A7X Fan Ben, posting a custom of the day each day. So custom ships has been extremely active lately. So if you're into that sort of thing, that's been blowing up, quite frankly. And speaking of that,
we're getting some really weird themes for customs. You said somebody's working on a Bionicle set. Somebody posted an official Rainbow Six Siege customs thread recently, and there's already that sort of Legend of Zelda one out there. I think it was by El Cazador. Yeah, it's going way out of... we're going way off the rails with themes. I mean, power to them. If you like those and want to play with them, well, go for it.
Yeah.
It's just... I like to keep my peas and mashed potatoes separate on the plate.
Yeah, I usually do. For me, lately, it's been a case of just kind of looking at the stats and like abilities of each ship specifically, and not really thinking about the flavor implications, because sometimes it does get a little out there. And speaking of which, my Epic Seas set, which is a general fantasy set, not really inspired by another franchise of any kind, that one has been expanding a bit. I've actually added even more stuff, so that's got well over 200 game pieces. And because it's getting bigger, we're going to cover a little bit more of my fantasy set per episode. Instead of just one, we might do 4 or 5 pieces on a random episode like this. And I'm trying to release 1 fantasy custom per day, along with the historical stuff, at least until I run out of new fantasy stuff. But I've got a bunch more coming, including a couple I I worked on this past week that are kind of crazy, but in an interesting way, I think, in my opinion. So without further ado, we're going to get into the custom section. So that sums up the news in general. And just a little shout out that if you do want custom game pieces reviewed on the podcast, you can post specific pieces in the podcast threads on the various forums. And that's the best way for us to know exactly what you want reviewed. But other than that, we're going to get into the organized version of the custom ships thread. And
it'll probably be one of the last times we go into the thread because we are losing track of what exactly we've gone through. We don't want to retrace those steps. So we're probably, possibly going to abandon that. And we'd prefer that if people do want things reviewed, post them as a response to the podcast thread and post the miniatures you want us to talk about, because that'll just keep things easier for the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So in Custom Ships Organized version, Silvaxry, a custom from his, is Barrel of Fools. This is a 2-masted pirate submersible, which is a new keyword. He says, cannot be given a surface action once submerged unless you roll a 6 on a d6. Crew cannot be unloaded from or loaded onto the ship once it leaves your home island. They still follow the usual submarine rules, so it's kind of like a nerfed version of submarine. So like I said, 2 segments, pirate. Both cannons are 4S, 4 cargo, SS move, and along with this new submersible keyword, it says, whenever the ship is given a move action, roll a d6. On a 1 or 2, submerge or surface this ship. So if it's underwater, you have to surface it, and then vice versa. So this is one I've seen vaguely a little bit, and he doesn't give point costs for this stuff, which is kind of fun because we can try to kind of approximate what we think it might cost. In this case, it's got 2 abilities that aren't all that great. I would probably try to use this as some kind of ram sub or like a gold runner, I guess, but I don't think more than 10 to 12 points would be necessary for that.
I am honestly not sure what you're supposed to do with this, because based on the keyword, it says cannot be giving a surface action once submerged unless you roll a 6 on a d6. I don't know what is meant by a surface action.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is that move? Is that shoot, repair, explore?
Yeah, maybe it would be everything, because they would all be surface, so maybe it can't move underwater. I don't know.
It strikes me as maybe it's intended to be something like a secure but slow gold runner, and I don't think that it's all that much better than Coleoptera at that role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I'm sure it's usable, but it'd have to be really cheap because it's not that fast, and this ability would kind of hurt it. Yeah,
it's kind of a conundrum. Yep.
Although I do like the name and the flavor text.
Yeah. Next one is El Cazador. So one of the more recent things he's started is a custom set based around the Battle of Lepanto and some of the events of the 1500s in the Mediterranean. So under his post, we've got a Portuguese custom. It's a ship, which on the Wikipedia page, the general name, I can't pronounce the original name, but Botafogo is the galleon name. And this is a Portuguese 4-masted custom, so a new historical faction, which is actually something I've been somewhat interested in, but I've already got the Dutch, and so far I've pretty much planned on just integrating any Portuguese customs into the Spanish, but we'll see if that changes going forward for my own customs. But this is a Portuguese 4-master. It's 14 points, 4 cargo, L move. The cannons are 2S, 2L, 2L, 2S, and this ship gets +1 to her ram rolls. So it's a pretty good gunship. I looked at it earlier today. Just got some pure firepower and a good ability. And there's actually a link, which you could go over if you want.
I actually haven't found it in the thread yet.
Oh, yeah.
I ran across the Portuguese, but
yeah, it's towards the bottom. Yeah. And then Infante Luis is the linked crew, and it's a Portuguese Captain World Hater for 7 points. So you get captain, and then plus the ship gets +1 to her cannon rolls against non-Portuguese ships, crew, and forts. So basic Captain World Hater for 7. So that's a very good linked crew though for this ship, because she's already definitely a gunship. So you put this crew aboard, along with a helmsman and maybe an oarsman, and you've got a very, very capable gunship here with a little bit of cargo open. So I'd say it's a good combo, definitely. And
yeah, I think Infante is sort of like the Captain World Hater crew from Mysterious Islands, but he does have a unique spin on him because he gets the bonus against crew and forts as well, which is not something you really see past Barbary Coast, I think. And the ship that I don't know how to pronounce, I'm going to say Sao Yoao Baptista.
yeah.
It's sort of SE box chip, but again, it gets an ability we never saw in the game for some reason. I think probably a little bit bland, but at the same time, it does take the ship in a direction that WizKids never went, and I am glad that it does have an ability with some imagination to it instead of something dull like a reroll.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. All right. So on to the next page. I actually have found one from your customs that I'll take a look at here, and we can do the links if you want to, but I see a new version of Bianco's Haulers for the Spanish. This is an uncommon crew from godmason, and it's 6 points, and it says this ship gets +1 to her boarding rolls, along with the secret hold keyword, and a link to Master Bianco and Esplendor del Mundo. So this one strikes me as pretty decent. It would be perfect on a treasure raider, maybe even La Joya del Sol, although, wow, she's already got +1 to boarding rolls, but maybe a hybrid like La Santa Isabel or even San Cristobal could do pretty well with this in like a hybrid setup. Usually I value Secret Hold at 3 and +1 boarding rolls at 2, so I wouldn't mind seeing it come down in cost to 5. I think that would be all right. But other than that, I think it's a good custom, and I like how you're continuing with the lore. That's a good thing to see.
Yeah, there's enough going on that I don't think we need to make up a full roster of new characters, especially when there's still, say, a story to tell. But precisely where the canon was going is kind of hard to predict because we don't know. Well, I guess we do know the flavor text of some of the stuff from Return to Savage Shores. But yeah, I thought it was really strange how Bianco and his haulers only appeared at the game's start and end in Spanish Main and then in Savage Shores.
Yeah, that is a really unique way to see it. Yeah, good point.
Is there anything else from this thread we should go through?
Yeah, I was going to take a look at one from Vixenish Coder 66. He's got the Lighthouses that he made. I'm gonna try one from the Curse, the False Hope. So Vixenish Coder 66 basically has a bunch of lighthouses, and might not read the whole keyword, but basically they're very similar to forts in how they're built and constructed. You have to pay gold for them. They're usually only 1 to 4 gold, and basically there's the light measures LL from the base of the lighthouse tower, and the light emitted from the lighthouse follows the rules for trade currents. So it gives you a +S move to friendly ships within LL of the lighthouse, and a single hit is required to eliminate the lighthouse flag, and then once it loses the flag, it can't use abilities, and then an additional hit will destroy the lighthouse. So that's the general gist of it, and under the Cursed, I see one called the False Hope. So this is a cursed lighthouse, 2 gold required to build it, 1 mass, 1 cargo, just like the other lighthouses. The lighthouse keyword, along with treacherous winds, which is another keyword, and that one for this lighthouse says, when an enemy ship is within the range of this lighthouse, roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, the player may move the enemy ship an L in any direction. 4, the enemy ship may not be given a move action the following turn, and 1 to 3, there's no effect. So that's an interesting one, because the way I see the ability of treacherous winds, it seems pretty beneficial to an opponent in a way. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be the player controlling the lighthouse moves the ship L. I would assume that's how it works, and then not be given an action the following turn, that seems like the most negative ability. So I wouldn't mind if the rolls were a little different. Maybe 1 to 2 for the negative effect, and then 5-6 for the positive. But other than that, I think it's an interesting concept to play with, and it makes sense given the cursed, like, supernatural spin.
I think it's probably intended to be the Lighthouses keeper is meant to move the other player's ship, but in this case, I think it's not worded correctly, and it seems to imply that whoever comes within range can do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seems to me. Yeah. Yes, the wording could use a little edit. So, yeah.
But as far as a unit goes, I think it's an interesting one. I've sort of always been a fan of this idea of adding lighthouses, but I think there is there's kind of an excessive addition of keywords. Like, why not just write these abilities with the lighthouses?
Yeah, I agree with that, because some of the keywords only apply to one lighthouse. If they apply to a lot of them, like the lighthouse keyword, that makes sense. But yeah, if it's kind of like a one-of-one ability, maybe he didn't intend it to be that way. Maybe he'll make more. But yeah, if it's going to only be on, between 1 and 3 or 1 and 5 game pieces, might as well kind of list it on the card, especially if it was real. So the flavor text I'll peek at real quick. Men have seen the women who is the keeper of this tower. It is said the whispers of her victims can be heard in the winds, which obey her every command. That kind of makes me think about Tabitha McWarren, or maybe the Screaming Mimi, some of the cursed female crew, actually. I don't know if there's any connection there, but the flavor text reminded me of that anyway. So, All right. And then finally, the last custom from this thread we'll go over tonight from J.W. Darkhurst, who is a younger brother of Xerix. Under the English, for Pirates of the Dark Tides, they have a flotilla called Aincrad, and it's a 9-point flotilla, and the guns are 4L, 3S, 4L, 3S, and it's got the flotilla keyword and extended range, of course, so all those ranges are doubled of those guns, and each time the ship hits an enemy ship, eliminate a crew from that ship. So for 9 points, this seems kind of overpriced compared to Armada, because that one's got a little bit better cannon ranks. Those are all 3 SS, and that one eliminates cargo with every hit. So Aincrad seems kind of like a poor man's version of Armada, and as a result, I could see possibly going down to 8 points maybe.
Yeah, I don't think the 4LL guns are as good as we kind of hope they are. My experience is that anything with a rank 4 gun is rarely going to hit, so I don't think I would ever use this. Yeah,
especially compared to the other English flotillas, which are Gibraltar and Tower, are both excellent. So. Yeah,
those are both kind of top of their class. This, I think, should be no more expensive than, I think you said it was Armada and not Diablo. At best, it should be no more expensive. At worst, it could be cheaper, maybe. Yeah. I'm not saying it should be. I'm saying it maybe could be.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Any more from this thread?
Yeah, no, that sums it up pretty much. A lot of creators nowadays, so that's cool.
Yeah. All right. Into, I believe it was your historic set.
Yeah, the fantasy one, Epic Seas, yeah.
Okay, oh wait, do I have that one up already?
Yeah, I can read off. I can start it if you want. We're going to go over like 4 or 5 pieces maybe. So we're still in the Cursed faction, and for the rares, I think we left off on the Grand Apocalypse, which is a Cursed 6-masted junk. It's 25 points, 3 cargo, L move, all 6 cannons are 4L, and along with the junk keyword, it says this ship gets 2 shots per mast, just like Longship keyword, and cursed ships within S of the ship get +1 to their cannon rolls, so kind of like a faction-specific spin on the cheerleader ability. So this is one that this is just another one of those big cursed flagships, and the flavor text is short, so I'll just peek at it. A captured Jade Rebellion flagship, now under the command of the quote-unquote Antichrist, this giant ship is even more dangerous than before. So it's another captured Jade ship turned to evil here. They've really equipped it well. So it's inaccurate, but you could get up to 12 shots per shoot action.
Yeah, I like this one. It reminds me of it reminds me, well, obviously, of longships, but it also makes me think of the 10-masted junks because it's in that price neighborhood and in that firepower neighborhood, but it's got considerable weaknesses in that it's not as durable as they are. Its gun ranks are pretty bad. It doesn't have a lot of cargo and has a slow base move.
Yep.
So this is one where you're kind of pigeonholed into using certain crew on it, but it would still be kind of a bear to fight no matter what, no matter how it's set up.
Yeah.
I do like it, although...
Nice.
Although I do wonder if somebody could abuse it by putting Davy Jones aboard and starting to copy crazy abilities.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking it would also be one of the rare ships, a good place to put the DJC version of Phantasma. The World Eater for 9, but in this case, that would actually probably be worth it.
Yeah.
Although you'd have to kind of manipulate the cargo. The cargo is definitely a problem here. So, but I figured with 2 extremely powerful abilities, I mean, the cheerleader isn't great, but if this is part of a cursed battle squadron in a large game, which is kind of the intent, it could become even better because then it's going to have support around it that it's giving World Hater cannon bonuses to. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's the Grand Apocalypse. So the idea is it's a giant flagship to lead a big cursed fleet to the apocalypse, basically. So.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah.
Let's see. Age of the Fiend is up next. Would you like me to read this one?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, this is another 6-master. This one's 21 points instead of 25. It has 5 cargo, L move, 2 2S guns up front, 2 4L in the middle, and 2 3L out back. Of course, it's a 6-masted junk. Its keywords are that plus fear, and when the ship hits an enemy ship, you may also eliminate 1 crew from that ship. I do like the mix of armament because I don't think 4L guns are utilized quite enough. I do wonder, though, if this is quite worthwhile because I feel like that's redundant cargo space on this. I sort of feel that way about really big capital ships. It seems kind of pointless to have so much cargo because you're not going to run anything with it.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you're going to put a SAC crew aboard, maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say that, actually. Yeah, it could become redundant. I'm thinking, like, Captain Helmsman, at least 1 named crew, like some version of Phantasma or something from this set. And then you could throw aboard, like, a Firepaw Specialist to use with the 2S cannon, so you'd probably utilize at least 3 of the 5 cargo either way. I can see your point, though, definitely, because there's certain ships, like the San Cristobal, where you want the cargo to be a hybrid, but this is probably not gonna run gold very much. So yeah, it's a fair point.
Mm-hmm.
I'll go on to the next one, which is, I think I hinted at this one in a previous episode as like one of the absolutely crazy ones. So
what is this?
This is gonna be crazy.
What is
All right.
this?
So
Why?
the next one is the first uncommon of the set, number 7. It's a cursed switchblade. The name is Harvester, and it's 28 points, 4 masts, 6 cargo, L move. The cannons are 3L, 2S, 2S, 3L. There's a link to the Fiend Slave, which I'll go over in a second, and the abilities are Switchblade, and if this ship wins a boarding party, she may capture all of the other ship's cargo. Any captured crew are assigned to the ship, don't take up cargo space, don't count against the point limit of the ship, and cannot use their abilities. Any captured gold and equipment does take up cargo space. If there's not enough cargo space available for the captured cargo, the controller of this ship may choose what to take. Any cargo left over is left on the enemy ship, so it's not eliminated. And then I'll go to the linked crew, which is Fiend Slave, which is a rare cursed crew, 8 points. And once per turn, you may eliminate one of this ship's cargo to give her an extra action. So instead of eliminating crew, for like 2 or 3 points, get an extra action, you can eliminate any type of cargo, get an extra action, but for a whopping 8 points. So the total combo would be 36 points, and that's before adding a captain and helmsman. So I realize it's a really extreme game piece, but I do like to err on the side of overpricing things at first and then bringing them down later after playtesting, just so you avoid the classic, overpowered situations as much as possible, and you don't have opponents whining about how you won the game because of an overpowered custom game piece. But that being said, I hope this isn't overpowered even at this extreme cost.
I'm honestly not sure because it's so extreme. It's a sack factory.
Yeah.
You're always going to have extra actions, which I think the price is probably not unfair, but considering its capabilities, I'm not sure it can be fair. I mean, it's also 28 points for a 4-masted ship.
Yeah.
And, of course, I like my RAM subs, and I could sink this with USS Layman for less than 20 points. Well, that comes in at... No, I think that comes in at like 22 or something. But, yeah this seems like too much for a ship that is only 4 masts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the price does correspond with its ideal ability, or with its ideal capabilities.
Yeah.
I think it should be nerfed to plain sack, and the price should come down a few points.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just wanted to make like an extreme like novelty type thing. I totally hear where you're coming from in terms of like a 4-master being 28, because then it just makes it really extreme. And then if you do sink it with crew aboard, you're losing a ton of points really quickly. So it's risky, but if you can pull it off, it's going to be... I can see this kind of as being a ship that could go on like a devastating run that like goes on like a streak of like intense victories that like really changes like a big game, or ideally you'd be using this in a larger game. So, but then the downfall would be equally grand. So it's kind of a crazy wacky piece, but I still like the ideas behind it. So yeah, thanks for the feedback though. Yeah.
I guess I want to do Buzzing Horror next. I don't know how many more of these we're going to do in this set.
Yeah, just this one is fine.
Okay, Buzzing Horror. I do like this because this looks like we're getting a little bit... I mean, I don't mind the fantasy stuff as much as you sometimes seem to, but this one doesn't seem too far out there. Buzzing Horror is 20 points, 4-masted Switchblade, 3 cargo, SS move, guns are 4S, 3L, 3L, 4S, Switchblade. If the ship succeeds at a ram roll when using its blades, you may also eliminate 1 cargo from the enemy ship. I like that. The linked crew is Technical Fiends, which I am trying to...
Oh, yeah, I'll try to see the number here. It's a common number 67, down towards the bottom, the cursed crew.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to... Okay, there we go. Wait, no, this thing's being really strange.
Yeah, I can read it.
Technical Fiends, wait, no. Helmsman equipment doesn't take up cargo space on the ship. That's pretty neat. So it seems like you're intending it to be a way of carrying around equipment, but most equipment, like fire shot or what have you, is... So it's... I guess you could almost say it's like having the ability that you can put specialists on a ship and that they're automatically linked. Yeah, this one's really strange. I'm not entirely sure which direction it's going in.
Yeah. It's kind of like a weird conglomerate where you would try to, I guess, use the Fiends, of course, and then you would definitely want to have a captain. And then from there, you could either try to keep it reasonably cheap at, I guess that would already be 27 though. So you might as well add, fire shot, stink pot shot, grape shot, especially because they're only 1 point each. It kind of expands the cargo, but only in like an equipment niche role, essentially. So, and the inspiration is the Technical Fiends, who are, experts with what they're doing, so they can handle equipment well, and they know what they're doing in terms of operating the switchblades themselves. So it's kind of, I understand the speed makes no sense, but the idea is almost like a sawing, like a chainsaw type effect with the switchblades. So, and that's why it takes out the cargo. So.
It sort of reminds me of my my custom Switchblade USS Sawmill or whatever that was called.
That's a good point.
It's like that, but I mean, so the ability is good, and it's good that it's a Switchblade, and Technical Fiends it's an interesting crew, but on a base statistical level, I think it's too expensive, because if you pull off the Switchblade keyword and that ability and all that, you're left with a ship that doesn't really have very good armament, not a lot of cargo space, and is still really expensive. And I don't think the abilities quite justify it, because I don't think they actually add all that much to the ship's capabilities.
Yeah. You think it would be worth 20 points if I knocked the cannons to all rank 3, or even made the S-range cannons 2S?
Or, I mean, let's see, a 4L... 4Ls on the end, I sort of like.
Yeah.
And maybe at 17 or 18 points.
Okay.
I'm not feeling super sharp today, but...
Yeah, no, that sounds like an interesting change. I might do that already. Yeah.
I think 4Ls were sort of underutilized as a middle ground between barely usable 3Ss and totally unusable 4Ss.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah, I think I agree. I've actually had reasonable luck with rank 4 cannons, especially 4L, as compared to 3S. 3S I seem to be cursed with. No pun with the cursed here.
Yeah.
I'm actually changing that right now. Yeah, I'll try it like that. So, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. And were we doing the Age of Sail this time, or were we...
No, we're going to go to Zarek's Fiends of the Blood Islands.
Right.
Try to get that on the screen here.
And we were doing the American faction, correct?
Yep.
All right. I will kick that off, because we've got the USS Colossus, which is a 22.5 master. All the guns are 2S, 4 cargo, L move, broadsides attack once per turn, roll a d6 extra action. This is a really weird one, because it's sort of half HMS Titan. Yeah, this is weird. It's like HMS Titan and Enterprise, but you take the weak attributes of both, and then you also give it broadsides attack. I think it's trying a little bit too hard to be a Dreadnought. And all 2S guns is fitting of broadsides attack, but this is a case where it's statistically good, and it has 2 abilities that are kind of expensive, and I don't think this really quite compares to what else you could get at 22 points.
Yeah, I agree. Stuff like, it's kind of like a downgrade from the Titan, because the broadsides attack keyword is expensive. I've actually used this one. It performed pretty well for the Americans in Vassal Campaign Game 3. Granted, they had a massive fleet in that game, so it's not indicative of performance in reasonably sized games, but it is a very good ship. It's just you kind of need a ton of points to utilize it effectively. And even at 2S broadsides attack, I don't really like to risk my cannons on a ship this large. Maybe if there was only 1 or 2 guns left, but as is, it's kind of like a downgrade of the Titan, where it's using points on broadside attack. It would be better off saved, essentially. So, yeah, but not every ship needs to be as good as the Titan, so still a pretty good ship, but yeah, the Enterprise is similar.
I'm thinking, the Enterprise is 4 points cheaper. Do you get more cargo on that ship? I don't remember.
Yeah, it's 5, yep.
Yeah, so it's 4 points cheaper, you get more cargo, and you get to throw away broadsides attack. Yeah. Oh, and you move faster, because that has SS.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, USS Colossus, I think, is just a little overwrought.
Yeah, she's almost more similar to the Dreadnought than the super gunships Titan and Enterprise, which are, especially the Titan, kind of honestly worthy as hybrid potential in a smaller game. But anyway. So yeah, another Dreadnought type ship, to say the least. All right, so the Justice is the next ship. This is a 4-master for the Americans, 18 points. All 4 cannons are only 4S, 3 cargo, L movement, and it's got the battleship keyword, which says a ship with this keyword has 2 shots per mast and has extended range. And then it's also got +1 for cannon rolls against any non-American ship, so World Hater. So the cannons are basically not 4S, they're basically 3 SS with 2 shots per mast. So it's a big, U-turn in a way. It looks bad at first, and then when you put on the abilities, it becomes a really good gunship. Unlike some of the other battleships, I think this kind of maybe could work at 18. It's going to be pretty powerful, but
I'm not sure, honestly, because I thought this was better than the others, but you're still sitting there with 8 3SS guns at 18 points. It doesn't matter if the base stats aren't that good.
Mm-hmm.
That's really overwhelming firepower.
Yeah, it is a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I know you've said before, the World Hater on a ship ability kind of is a little bit funky. And in this case, it kind of adds to this like level of illusion almost. It's kind of weird. I don't know. It's kind of a weird effect between when you first see the cannons and then you stack up the abilities, and it's like a completely different ship. It's kind of almost like a strange U-turn or like an illusion, like I said. So I don't know. I'm not really sure what to think of this one. Battleship in general is just kind of overpowered, I guess, as a concept. But
I don't mind it having extended range, but what I think should happen is this ship should be 15 points. It shouldn't have 2 shots per mast, but it can keep the extended range and everything else. That way, it's at least got the niche of having exceptional range, even if its accuracy isn't that great.
Yeah.
And then at 15 points, it might even be reasonably competitive. Maybe 14 even.
Yeah. Cool.
Mm-hmm. The next ship is Freedom's Banner, 14.4 master, 4L, 3S, 3S, 4L, 5 cargo, SS move, armed merchant, that sort of ability that allows you to shoot at an enemy ship when they come within S of you, I think it was, or maybe just cannon range. The link is to Captain Tyler Robinson, who is 11 points. Quite shockingly, that's a lot. And his abilities are Hostile England, Pirate Spain. As part of a move action, the ship may initiate a boarding party. Okay. This is a combined S-boarder and double roller, as in one of those crew that allows you to roll 2d6 and then make your choice. Sort of like, I guess you could consider those a reusable re-roller.
Yeah.
So I guess the idea is that it's supposed to be a gold runner with a lot of self-defense.
Yeah.
But you're spending 25 points, let's say 27, because you're going to put a helmsman on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's 27 points. Sure, it can defend itself well, but even better, you could get yourself Carolina and a cargo master and helmsman, and then you've got a ship that's just as fast, and you can spend the rest of your points on an escort.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem cost effective. I'm not against the play style, but it's sort of overdone.
Yeah. No, I actually agree. Even more so than with the Colossus. I think this is kind of out there. I think the Freedom's Banner could maybe afford to be 13 or 12. Well, probably not 12 with Armed Merchant. Maybe 13 points. Tyler Robinson is just kind of weird because you can't fit him, a captain, and a helmsman aboard. It's almost like the ship wants to be a hybrid with this link, but then it kind of falls apart in terms of the costing, because the crew costs almost as much as the ship, so it gets kind of ugly in a hurry. Escorting and the double reroll, or the choose which D6 result you want on 2 rolls. Neither of those abilities are very cost effective either. Those are both overpriced in general. So putting them on the same crew makes it even more kind of ridiculous. I think I would maybe just use the Freedom's Banner without the link. I think Robinson is a mess either way. I understand you wouldn't want to decrease the cost too much, just because WizKid's price escort at 5 usually, and the other ability at 8, which is definitely too high. I think Robinson, though, just to make him reasonably useful, or arguably useful, I think he could come down to 8 or 9.
I agree with you.
Yeah. And the Freedom Spanner, though, just to finish my thought real quick, I would use her with a captain and helmsman and no linked crew. I would just make her a basic hybrid. I wouldn't really bother with spending 11 on Robinson.
Something else I'd like to say is I don't think of Tyler as a name that would have existed during this game's historical period.
Huh. Yeah.
Like, everybody you know named Tyler. I mean, who is the first person named Tyler? I bet they were born in 1980.
Yeah, let me, I'll look that up if I have to.
Yeah, that's a really strange thing to bring up during the customs thing, complaining about the first name of a custom crew. I bet it's named after one of the creators' friends or something like that, or somebody from their play group.
Yeah, probably. All right, I'll start the next one, which is Swift Victory. This is a 22.4 master. All 4 cannons are 3S. It's got 3 cargo, SS move, and the abilities are Clipper Ship, which is a keyword that says this ship's movement is measured from bow to stern. So when you pick it up, you kind of leapfrog. So you end up with the stern being where the bow normally would be on other ships. Kind of tough to think about it without the visual, but anyway. And then also this ship gets plus L to her base move if she is all of her masts. So it's wicked fast without any crew. It would be going SSL with all masts, and then of course it'd be, a bunch faster than that with the Clipper Ship keyword. So it's blinding speed, and beyond that, I would probably just do Captain Helmsman and preferably a world hater like Brent Rice, and then you'd have 2S cannons, and you would get the first shot almost every time. Well, yeah, I mean, this would go without extra actions. This has a faster overall speed output than San Cristobal due to the Clipper Ship keyword, how that works. Because it would be SSLS with all masts and a helmsman. And you definitely need the first shot, because once you lose a mast, you're going to be slowing down a bunch.
I think this is way too much, because the length of this ship is going to be at least S. So its base move is basically it's basically 4S base move, and then you get another LS if you have all your masts. So this thing is already game-breakingly fast, and you could make her a gold runner if you wanted, end the game almost instantly. It's just too much.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It kind of pushes the boundaries of like the Age of Sail. Like this feels like a PT boat. You know what I mean? Like the speed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like a sailing ship shouldn't technically go this fast. Like I know there's all sorts of problems with the game and extra actions kind of mess things up a bit. And the high pang is OP with the right crew, but this just takes that idea and makes it even more extreme, which is something the game doesn't need. So
yeah, and something else I'd like to point out is this gets an absurd bonus from having a helmsman because it can move what amounts to at least S plus S on that. So if you put a helmsman on this, you're moving basically 7S plus L. This is too much.
It kind of. I feel like it breaks not the fourth wall or whatever, but it just breaks your idea of like the thematics of the game for me. Like I kind of rant on the historical stuff too much, but like you'd be across the whole board in a regular game with one move action. So that's it just feels cheap and lame and kind of weird.
And never mind realism. I think it's just in the context of the game, it's just too good. You can play with the cost. I would say reduce the base move to S. Yeah. And at most give it plus S if it has all of its masts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
I like that
even then, you may still be at like 4S base move and.
Yeah, I like your idea there though with decreasing the base move because in Clipper ships they weren't really, historically, clipper ships weren't supposed to fight, so decreasing the cannon ranks makes sense, and also, I think limiting it to +S when she's overmassed makes sense as well. So
yeah, she needs to be. Even if you cut her way down, she's still absurdly fast. Actually, I'd say you can keep her at her cost, make her base move S and her bonus S, and even then, there's still a great argument to use her. You can have a cargo master in your fleet, and from there, a helmsman is optional because you've either got a ship that's really fast or a ship that's really, really fast. Even if you absolutely destroy this ship's capabilities, she's still worth her cost. USS Spirit is next, 19 points, 4 masts, 4 L guns on the ends, 4 S in the center, 5 cargo, SS move. Another clipper ship, so we're going to have stuff to say about that. One of the ship's treasures is worth +2 gold when she docks at your home island. We've sort of already talked about these capabilities. I would say this might be fair at L base move.
Yeah, possibly. I worry about it because the +2 gold ability is wicked good. Yeah.
I'd say L base move because then you're getting L plus S out of it already, and then when you throw a helmsman on board, and you will, because it has 5 cargo and you won't suffer at all from throwing one on, you'll be moving at least 3S plus L with that ability, and that's really tough to catch, and it'll be tough to catch, it'll be tough to kill because it's durable. The saving grace is that it is vulnerable, or no, not vulnerable, that it is really expensive.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that WizKids really got wrong, was that spending more on a gold runner didn't really serve as a good return on your investment.
Yeah, diminishing returns,
Yeah, I mean, you can get Banshee's Cry for 3, and then you can get Lubalul with a Helmsman and Explorer for 12, and it's not that much better.
Yeah. And Lubalul is still really good. The Spirit strikes me as kind of overpowered. The concept seems too good. But yeah, I don't think it would need too much editing to make it reasonable. So the next one is the Sea Strider. This is a 15-point American 3-master. Cannons are 4L, 4S, 4L, 4 cargo, SS move, and once again, one of the ship's treasures is worth +2 gold when she docks at your home island. This one seems alright. The +2 gold ability, I'm kind of a little bit tired of seeing in general on customs. I wouldn't mind if it was just changed to +1. In that case, you could really nix the cost to like 10 or so. This one seems kind of too pricey, but given how good +2 gold is, I don't know. I wouldn't really want to use it, but it's just not my kind of custom in general, I guess.
I agree with you. This is nerf it and make it 10 points. It's too expensive and also sort of too good where it is right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not particularly imaginative either, because that ability appears elsewhere on this exact page of this custom spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I feel like there's like attempts here that we're seeing to try to make the Americans better at running gold, but that was never their strength in the game. And it's just kind of, the attempt is going like to an extreme by making like super ships that are like wicked expensive. So it's kind of funky.
Yeah. I don't fault him, but I think the sort of theme of the Americans was big, expensive hybrid ships that are good at everything, but they're also pretty pricey.
Yeah, and gunships especially.
Yeah. The next ship up is Cherokee Rose, 12 points, 2 masts, both 3S, 3 cargo, L move, schooner, and then Home Island Raider. Are we sure this isn't from Fire and Steel? Because this is really bad.
Exactly pretty much what I was thinking.
I could swear, isn't there a ship out there that is 2 points. I want to say there's a 10-point two-masted schooner that has home island rating, better guns, more cargo, and a faster move.
Yeah, it might be.
Is it Panda?
No, that one kills cargo, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lady Provost is better, but more expensive. I don't know.
But not by much, only by 2 points.
Yeah.
This ship is... This is a 6-point ship, I would say.
I was going to say 8, but I can see where you're coming from. I think
because it's slow.
Yeah, and you're not going to... the cargo is not enough to like really capitalize on any hybrid potential. Yeah, this just strikes me as like kind of continuing where WizKids left off with the nixing of schooners. So I talked about this, I think, either in a YouTube video or on a thread recently, where the Americans had a ton of, or maybe it was a podcast, I don't know. Yeah, actually it was probably with Rise of the Fiends, because the Fly is just a 4-man's version of the Peacock, and that's not even the best example. The best example is, the Royal James, Raven, and 2-masted, 3-masted schooners like that, and the Jarvis turning into the Gold Eagle and other junky schooners that are really slow from the later sets. Unless there's some kind of flavor implication, I don't really think the schooner ship type should have base moves under S+S. It just seems kind of counterintuitive and weird. I think WizKids had it right in Crimson Coast and Revolution, where it was kind of a fast ship type in general and also maneuverable. I think they should have kept with that. The reverse power creep hit schooners really hard, and unfortunately this continues that. So I think it would be a really interesting ship at 8 points with 3 or 4 cargo and SS move. I think that would be a good way to fix this. But anyway, as is, it's pretty much unusable. So.
Yeah, and there's honestly enough that's similar to this in Crimson Coast. Honestly, I swear there's a ship that does everything the ship does better for cheaper. It's already in there.
Yep.
Yeah, this one's like, meh.
Yeah. All right.
Just too expensive.
Yeah, so we went over Captain Tyler Robinson. The next crew is Admiral Nathan Rivers, who is a 10-point American crew with a link to all American ships. And it says his abilities are loyal, and once per turn, roll a d6. On a 5 or 6, the ship may be given an extra action, and once per turn, cancel the ability of one crew or ship with an S of this ship. So basically, EA plus Canceller for 10. So technically the right costs, with a nice link to all American ships. So this is pretty much an awesome, like, super powerful named crew, perfect for big gunships in campaign games. The Constitution could use him well, along with some of their other big gunships. So
I think he's worth at least 11 points.
Yeah, really good, but kind of too good just because the abilities are just so amazing.
Yeah, it's a pair of top-tier abilities at cost. It links to all American ships, which I think is also worth something. This is a Dreadnought crew, and you don't really pay Dreadnought prices for him. I think he's too cheap.
Yeah.
And I say that as somebody who likes the American faction. I think this is a little too good. I'd say at least 11 points.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do we have any more to say about this one?
Not really. I mean, I don't know. I think it's okay at 10. I understand wanting to go higher. I think with the link, it could be 11. I think the biggest problem is WizKids should have done Canceller at like 7 or 8. And once again, the abilities costings are funky, so that kind of carries over into customs, which is unfortunate. So it's kind of, that kind of brings up a point, so I do have more to say. It's kind of a lose-lose game, because either you go with WizKids cost, and, people like us might complain about that, because it's like, well, they should have costed it at this. Then if you change it, then people might say, oh, shouldn't this be more expensive? And stuff like that. So it's kind of a lose-lose game, unfortunately, sometimes with ability costs and customs. So.
I might be down with this one if the link to all American ships was taken away at 10 points. It just seems to be too good at too many things. I'd like to also point out he would make a pretty good defensive crew as well. Put him on a Gold Runner as is. He takes up no space. So put Wayne Nolan on the ship, and you have an almost untouchable Gold Runner.
Yeah, the Frontier would be pricey enough. Hold him.
Yeah, it would. And at that rate, I mean, you could, I almost want to say you could fit him, Cargo Master, him, Cargo Master, Helmsman, and Wayne Nolan, and you'd have a ship moving 3S, you'd have 55% chance of an extra action, and even if you came within reach, you'd be canceled.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And you'd have 8 cargo space open there. So, I mean, that's expensive, but it would be almost untouchable in a 40-point game. Yeah, I think we've run out of things to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got one more left, so.
Yep, Fort Crusoe. Wait, is this
I think it's your turn. That's why I was waiting.
Yeah. Is this... Okay, so it says Fort Crusoe. It comes up with points. I think that must mean gold in this case.
Yeah.
And it has 3 2S guns, and its ability is... It's a fort, that is. Each time a friendly ship sinks, the crew with the highest point cost assigned to that ship is not eliminated. Instead, they're placed inside this fort. It sort of reminds me of... it's not Dead Man's Point, is it? It's...
Devil's Maw.
Devil's Maw.
Yeah.
It's an American Devil's Maw that's more expensive and not as durable. I guess I kind of like it. Might be useful in really big games, but in small games, not really.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is it's too good in big games because there's no cap on it. This would be ridiculously overpowered in a campaign game because friendly ships would sink all the time, and then you get to save the high point crew, so you'd have a bunch of, you basically wouldn't have to pay for the captains, and that's just the beginning of it. Imagine Admiral Nathan Rivers coming back every time he's sunk, So I think this kind of goes with the same problem I've seen with other things like Cargo Master and Navigator. And once again, I'm a big fan of putting a cap or a limit on things to limit how overpowered they are. So not the limit keyword, definitely not. I mean, the first 3 crew that sink or whatever. So I think that would be a much more interesting way of doing it instead of just having this unlimited, let's all come back from the dead to hunt everybody and make the Americans OP in campaign games. That's what's the problem here, I think. But I agree with you, in 40-point games or whatever, it's not really even all that an attractive option, and you're not gonna spend the gold on it. It's kind of like you'd only use it in campaign games, and that's exactly where it becomes problematic. So I think it's kind of a very difficult game piece. So I think a cap on the number of 3 or 5, the first 3 or 5 high point crew or whatever, or even maybe you could base it on point cost. So if the ship had a crew that costs at least 6 is sunk, then that crew comes back. But you can't get every high cost crew from every sunken ship. Maybe they have to be this many points to come back or whatever. So anyway.
Yeah, maybe start with 4. That way you can't recover generic crew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even that would help. Yep.
Yeah, or maybe 6 so you can't get Cargo Masters back.
Mm-hmm.
After the customs thing, because that's the expiry of the Americans in the Fiends of the Blood Island set, I wanted to bring up the worst ships thread. Sorry there. We don't normally do a lot of swearing on the podcast, but I'm kind of tired. That was not intentional. Yeah. The worst ships thread, that's with a P, not a T, is something I started, I want to say, last week. I ended up getting a haul of kind of a bunch of broken ship parts, and I just decided, let's build some really terrible ships to see if I can elicit a reaction from some people in miniature trading. Some of them are kind of out there. Some of them are tame. I've seen some really interesting stuff posted so far, including the extended Divine Wind, which the extended Divine Wind I really like. There's some stuff in there that actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Most of what I've posted, though, has been kind of awful, and as it's supposed to be, including the sort of upside-down Queen of Cups.
Yeah.
I do have more coming that's really dumb. I wanted to know what your thoughts were on it and whether or not you could see yourself contributing more to the thread. I almost sort of want to see it turn it into a one-up contest of coming up with the worst things we can.
Okay. Yeah, I see what you're going with. I will say and I've got it on the video form of the podcast. I like your dragon shark thing. I think that one is one of the best ones, actually. I think that could almost work. If you cut out a couple extra slots and made it more of a shark serpent, like have serpent parts in between the empty spaces there, I think it would look even better. I don't know if that should fly with how heavy it would be, but maybe if you had
shark serpent.
Yeah, maybe if you had another pair of wings and had 4 wings, then maybe you could give it the sea dragon keyword.
Or what about 4 pairs of wings? 2 on the head, 1 on that thing, and 1 at the very tail. I would if I had enough wings to work with.
Yeah. I think that would make sense. Yeah.
There are more sea creatures on the way.
Nice.
Some of them are really ridiculous. Like if you think that's tame, if you think that's outlandish, it's nothing compared to what's coming.
Cool. Yeah,
I've got some really weird ones.
Yeah, I brought that one up because I think it was one of the more practical ones, actually. Some of them are just kind of ugly and like random. I don't know. It's just kind of
that's the point. A lot of them are supposed to be really bad.
Yeah. The not so lar one was just, I don't know. That didn't do it for me.
That was like,
I don't know.
Where that was like the second or third one I posted?
I don't know. It was the one with the oars sticking up high in the air.
Oh yeah, that one was just weird.
Yeah.
I had leftover parts. I should combine ship and sea creature parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be really terrible.
Yeah, I think Sylvaxry did that a while ago, which I don't know if the pictures will show up, but if you look in the first, I don't know, around 10 pages of the original custom ships thread, pretty sure there's a link in the new one. You can see some of his stuff, assuming if the pictures show. I don't know if they will for Photo Bucket, but anyway. And your newest one with the Cristal del Obispo, that one actually does make a bit of sense, as Zarek said. So I think the thread does have potential. I can't say I'll be adding more. I don't know. I used up a bunch of... that post that I did in the original custom ships thread or whatever, that was the result of like going through a bunch of stuff. And actually, I think Sylvaxry was one that got me a bag of spare parts. And those are the best results of like a bunch of like trying stuff out and like maneuvering things and just trying different concepts. So I kind of prefer stuff that could work, or at least it's kind of like a fun concept to come up with like actual ships and abilities. But I think other people might enjoy the random like bizarre stuff more than me, so I think it still does have potential. But yeah.
I think I agree with you for the most part. I think I prefer stuff that could feasibly be a real ship, but at the same time, I also like making really horrible stuff. I do have a couple really dumb ones on the way that you could not actually play because they're just too silly. And then I have another one that's just a sort of joke coming along that it's not actually a custom horrible ship. It's just the horrible ship as it came from the pack. I guess I'm spoiling that joke now, but yeah, this is a call to anybody out there. Make really offensively terrible custom ships out of leftover pieces or whatever and post them, because I do want other people to be involved in this. I want to see the messes other people can come up with.
Yeah. And speaking of Xerix, he's actually watching. He's been commenting on the YouTube live stream.
Hey, Xerix.
So thanks for joining us. And he says he was not directly involved in the design of the Cherokee Rose. So I guess that's not his ship, actually. So
yeah. Excellent. Good.
Yeah, exactly.
I sort of felt bad ripping into some of those, but yeah.
And then he asks, suppose Rivers lost his link to all American ships. Would he still be worth 11 to you?
Well, I think I said that I would swallow that pill if he lost his link. He could be 10.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Nice. I said that back during that segment, but I might not have made that clear.
Yeah, no, I think you did. He's saying maybe lose the link and go to 11, but I think 10 would be fine in that case. So, yeah. And then he also says, just wait till I post in that thread. So he's gonna.
Oh, please do.
Getting on that. So yeah.
Yeah, you can either come out with a barrage of them, or you can do what I'm doing and post one a day, so people keep coming back to it.
Yeah, that's what I like to do with the customs, so it doesn't overwhelm people too much with too many customs at the same time. So, then into the final segments of the podcast. Have you played it all recently, or no? Probably been too busy.
No. Yeah, I've been really busy with working full time. At best, I'll be able to start playing again in July. I'm hoping I find time to play again, but again, this is not something I've got a lot of time for. I haven't actually been all that active on miniature trading lately. I'll sometimes come in and read stuff, but I haven't been posting much. Yeah,
I played one game against El Cazador recently, but it was kind of weird, and then he conceded the game before it was over, so that's my only... So I haven't played much lately either. I have been enjoying posting pictures of the day related to my Economy Edition campaign game in the video vlogs, because that happened in June 2015, so I've been doing the 3-year anniversaries. So, I posted a picture on the vlog. Picture of the day is tomorrow will be June 12th, 2018, so 3 years ago tomorrow. There were certain events in Economy Edition, which is always fun to look back on, especially being passionate about campaign games. But yeah, not a lot of playing, unfortunately, but maybe it's just one of those times of the year. So the next little segment is Rules for Thought number 11, just a quick little blurb about that. Somebody commented on YouTube and talked about how they have a house rule where point cost damage is based on, or damage is based on point cost of ships. So if you have a ship with 20 point cost, and it got hit, 2 or 3 times, the cost would come down to to 18, 17. So you would actually subtract from the point cost. So I think it has a really interesting potential, especially in terms of durability, because I don't really like how every hit eliminates a mast. So, and that's part of the reason I use 2 hits per mast in campaign games some of the time, and that's happening in Vassal Campaign Game 4 and the Caribbean game, the 2 current Vassal campaign games. And so I think it has potential, but as Wolf said in the thread, it's problematic because it would really wreck a lot of the in-game abilities and how things work with combat. So I think it's an idea that's worth looking into more and maybe play testing, but without changing other things as well, it's tough to just, implement it and just forget about it. It's pretty involved.
Yeah, it has problems, but at the same time, the limitations of WizKid's combat system, well, we kind of know how that goes. It's pretty well established that it's more important to get the first shots in. So it turns a lot of engagements into sort of kiting somebody else until you can be sure that you're going to start the fight with the advantage. And I don't imagine that's how naval warfare worked in real life necessarily, or at least in the Age of Sail. Yes, there's something to be said about Sun Tzu, okay, I'll only fight when you have the advantage, but I don't think the way WizKids designed the combat system was reflective of how actual naval combat in the Age of Sail went. I like the idea of a sort of health point pool, but I'm not sure that tying it to points is quite appropriate.
Yeah. Lord Denton had the idea a while ago of doing hull health versus mast health, but I don't know, that would require a lot of working on as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've played with the idea of, say, if this game were revived as as a computer or a mobile game or what have you, that every mechanic could be reworked to allow greater variation between ships and kind of finer, some more fine tuning. Like gun ranges wouldn't be SNL; they'd be sort of on a scale, and you'd measure ship speed in knots as opposed to these sort of chunks of SNL, which only allow for really, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 base moves. Whereas you could have a lot more variation between ships. Like, okay, this one moves 11 knots, and you could keep it. You could sort of keep it moves this distance. Like each knot would be a little space, but it would. Yeah, it's like this is not a bad idea for a mechanic. I think the game's mechanics could be expanded upon if it were rebooted as a computer game, and this is definitely one I would give thought to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, as is, though, playing within the realm of existing WizKids rules, as you pointed out, there are a lot of abilities that would work in really strange ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The next one is a rules interaction from back in 2011, the original rules thread, or, well, not the original, but the old one that got to 143 pages on the forum. Somebody requested in the survey, like, rules interactions, especially like obscure ones. So, and this kind of gets into the idea of counters in this case. So somebody was talking about finding Rudes of Odin. That's the UT that lets you place an iceberg from outside the game, and then any ship that comes into contact is removed from the game. And one way to counter that is Jailhouse Dog. So you can flip that at any time. That's an important thing to note with Jailhouse Dog. You flip that unique treasure at any time on any turn, and you can basically eliminate or cancel, permanently eliminate any UT from the game. So that's a good little counter. I do find Jailhouse Dog to be kind of a fun ruiner, though. That's kind of how I refer to it. I don't really like that UT thing, Karmic Idol and stuff like that. It kind of just ruins the fun for me, but whatever.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to go through a lot of crazy UTs in my games.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have had experiences with Maps of Alexandria and, Pirate Globe absolutely upending games because all of a sudden everybody knows where the valuable stuff is. Yeah. And then it becomes a race to that island or just kind of a fight over the island.
Yeah. And those ones I find, I don't know, it kind of depends on the game and what treasures are out there. Those ones I find can make the game worse or better depending on, what the situation is. So it's kind of, that one kind of also, it doesn't ruin the fun, but it can ruin the surprise of, like, finding stuff at islands. Especially if there's a lot of UTs. In a game with a lot of UTs, I love, especially on Vassal, when I'm playing somebody and people have to be like, oh, and then it's like, oh, what is it? And it's like, oh, Plague plus Runes of Magic plus other stuff. It's like, oh my god. So the Mats of Alexandria can kind of mess that up a bit, but oh well, I like the surprise factor. And then the next post in the rules thread, actually, which I'll link to, actually talks about an interesting concept. So Master Commander, former member of the forum, asked Wolf if a ship like the Santa Isabel or Spain's native canoes gives my opponent plus X gold at its home island, and I rate him with Loki Hero Phantasma, is the gold still worth the plus X? And Wolf says no, the extra gold is recorded separately for gold bonuses and does not stick to the specific coin, so it can't be stolen. So this is an interesting concept. I think this is a great opportunity for house rules. Usually I do that, but I do extra coins. So on Vassals, Eric and I have done that a bunch. We basically just put extra coins to the side that are still on the home island, rather than increasing the value of an existing coin, or I think taking it out of play entirely is kind of not the best way to do it. So anyway, so I think it should still be available, but it shouldn't be, like Wolf said, it also shouldn't be tied to the specific coin that's unloaded for gold bonuses.
Yeah, that was something that at one point I was wondering about, this stealing of gold that has seen its value increased. I do wonder what about stuff like, I think it's Jade or all the other UTs that can sort of have assigned values?
Mm-hmm.
Do they maintain the value if they're stolen? Are they converted into gold, or do they stay a UT with that value, and can they be stolen and, say, re-rolled because there are at least a couple where the value of the UT is based upon a die roll, either when it's found or when it's taken to the home island or other things. Yeah, so I'm wondering.
Right. Yeah, it's in the pirate code. It's from that same post, and there's a lot to read in real time here, but it does say additional/modified gold that is recorded in the tally cannot be stolen or removed from a home island by any means. The original treasure token that modification was applied to may be stolen or parlayed normally. So normally it's supposed to be kind of separate and taken out. I think it would be more interesting to do what you said and kind of have not necessarily a free-for-all, but have things fluctuate or at least be able to be stolen. I don't really like the idea of having something be doubled in value and then it can't be stolen back. I'm assuming this is the same pirate code entry that applies to that. I think so. I think it should be able to be stolen, but yeah, re-rolling certain UTs, that would get kind of wacky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, most of that was about how I'm wondering how home island rating interacts with UTs that have value, and I'm wondering if Wolf has an answer for that. Whether a UT that's, say, unloaded, if it's eliminated from the game when it's converted into gold value, or if it remains a UT and can be stolen as one again and thus sort of reactivated.
I think it stays in game, but then you can't take it, essentially, like it's separate. So that's what I'm getting from the entire code entry. Yeah, it's on that post, so yep. I did look up Tyler. It says among the earliest recorded use of the surname, so the last name, is from the 14th century. Wat Tyler was the leader of a 1381 peasants' revolt in England. So,
well, that's a surname, not a first name.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can believe, if the character's name, if their last name was Tyler, but first name seems kind of contemporary to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna try to look that up too. But anyway, the next thing is combo ideas. So somebody suggested going over like ship and crew combos. So one thing I just want to mention, if you are going to use a world hater, like the ship gets +1 to her cannon rolls against any non-faction ship, equipment are kind of an interesting way to augment that, because equipment you can use with the existing cannon's rank and range. So if you've got a 3L cannon, it's good to put like fire shot or exploding shot on that. But then if you have a world hater, it becomes even better because then 2L. So if you got the cargo on a big capital gunship and you've got world hater available, equipment are a good combo. Same with specialists. But then cannoneers and musketeers I would not recommend as highly, because if you've got a world hater, you're already increasing the chances of hitting anyway. So re-rolling with a cannoneer, not super great. And of course musketeers, as most people probably know, you can't increase, or you can't modify that cannon. It's a 3S either way. So musketeers don't really work well at all, world haters. So just a little combo. We'll try to do more segments on that, I suppose. And that's something that does come up naturally with customs and with the set reviews especially. But anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I've actually put that much thought into how to combine the offensive abilities such as World Hater and other, cannon augmenting abilities like Fire Shot or Fire Pod Specialist. But I do think that there is stuff to explore there. Not a lot with Musketeers.
Yeah.
Because WizKids did make the mistake of making them just a static 3.3S.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really easy to pad out, not easy to improve. And so I think basically nobody uses Musketeers for that reason, except in rare circumstances.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Rare circumstances where they can actually be padded, like on ships that eliminate 2 masts with 1 hit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so there are some uses, but
Yeah.
Usually you're better off with a cannoneer or just other stuff in general. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And usually that's only on smaller ships too, where number of guns is limited.
Yeah. And then I will say real quick, I do think about cannon ranks and ranges in terms of equipment versus specialists. So since specialists are generally limit your range to S, I like to use them on ships that already have S range guns. And I've talked about it on the set reviews a little bit. But nowadays, this has only happened in the past year or so, but I've kind of developed kind of like a niche focus on ships that have 2S guns at the bow being used with specialists, especially fire pot specialists. They're one of the better specialists in general. So the 2S, that way the bow cannon, the foremost cannon of the ship is usually going to be shooting first. So if you have a captain and helmsman, the 2S gun at the bow, if a ship has it, that's a good place for a fire pot specialist to kind of be almost assigned. You don't have to assign it to one cannon, but that's, what you want to use it with. So, and then of course, equipment is not limited to S range. So I like using equipment on ships that have long range guns, like 3L or 2L. So anyway, that's just something I look for if I am planning to add specialists or equipment. You don't always have points, especially in a small game, but if you do, there are certain things to look for.
I never really made that distinction. I always just sort of thought of equipment as the cheap option that you could lose if you got a bad roll.
Yep.
But that does actually make a lot of sense, because that is a difference that I think doesn't really matter to a lot of people. But
yeah, it's not super important, but it's kind of like an idea of
it's something good to figure out.
Yeah, it's like optimizing gunships, basically. So.
Mm-hmm. The next segment, I think, is the video game segment. I don't know if we have talked about Skull and Bones yet.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think we might have. One of my. I think we've talked about it only in the trailer sense, but Skull and Bones was the trailer came out and I was kind of negative Nancy about it. How I thought it was a little too fantasy-ish, like way more so than even Pirates of the Caribbean. Having seen some gameplay since, they actually seem to have some interesting mechanics going. Because one of the weird things is there aren't a lot of naval warfare video games out there, and that's because real naval warfare doesn't really happen on all that fast a time scale. And for that reason, in today's world of Call of Duty, everybody wants their fast-paced action. There's not a lot of good stuff out there that is. It's kind of actual naval warfare is slow. The naval warfare people want to play is fast, and yet when you try to expedite it, you lose some of the nuance or things get chaotic or what have you. That problem exists with World of Warships.
Yep. Which
I don't know if you've played, but...
No, I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube, though, and it does look kind of hectic.
It is a little bit hectic. It suffers from the fact that you rely on your teammates, and your teammates are most of the time not reliable. And... well, one of the problems with World of Warships is that it tries to play on a gigantic map and be fast-paced, and yet at the same time, games are like 20 minutes. The speeds are totally unrealistic. It'll say you're doing 20 or 30 knots, and you cover like 8 kilometers in a matter of minutes. It's really strange. It's got a totally bizarre sense of pace and speed, and I don't even think that the game balance was all that good last I played it. This relates to Skull and Bones, and that from what I've seen of Skull and Bones gameplay, they have managed to figure out fast-paced naval combat, especially Age of Sail stuff, and have some decent game mechanics to it, like sort of interplay between ship types. I'm interested in seeing more about the game as it comes closer to release. I don't actually know if they showed off anything about it at E3 this year. Do you happen to know?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah. E3 this year has been pretty good. I think we can probably... I don't know. Do you watch E3?
Nah, I don't.
No.
I mostly quit video games for the most part in like high school to a degree. So
yeah, I don't blame you. I haven't done as much lately, but there has been stuff that I have been interested in. Apparently, there was a new Skull and Bones trailer today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I might watch that in a minute, but probably not straight away while I'm on the podcast. And I doubt you can because I think you're not allowed to play other videos on YouTube Live.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, who knows what would happen. But yeah, video games are something I would do more if I had time and didn't have other stuff.
Yeah.
But, and it's kind of, that actually gets into what I was going to say. I don't really have much else to add to the topic as usual, but the 4X games, it's like Explore, Exterminate, whatever else. Those actually interest me a lot because they remind me of Pirates campaign games and kind of the idea of building this grand, epic, like world game type of like game of life rule set that goes on, infinitely, basically forever. So that's the type of thing that I'm interested in. But it's something I would do much later in life. Unlike Pirates, kind of like my own version of it in the Caribbean game where that started, but it's kind of stopped for now.
What do you mean by 4X, if you don't mind me asking?
It's like 4X. If you Google, I'll Google it here to try to get it up too. It's basically like a type of game. On Wikipedia, it says 4X is a genre of strategy-based video and board games in which players control an empire and explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like grand strategy that lasts a long time and kind of like a big world type of idea. So, video or board games, but I guess, I don't know if I prefer both or, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, grand strategy games. Yeah, I'm wondering if there are any sort of Age of Sail 4X style games. I doubt there are.
Yeah, I know Sid Meier's Pirates is like a big deal, but some of them kind of stray beyond. I don't know. Some of them are like not quite 4X game. I don't know. I don't really know much about the different types and whatnot, but it does say Sid Meier, the creator of the Civilization series of 4X games. He's a big creator in that kind of genre, and he does have a Sid Meier's Pirates game, so there is some stuff, but 4X games I think are mostly like even bigger, so it would be like sailing and land and other stuff, so rather than just like one Age of Sail naval thing, but so it would encompass that, but also other aspects like political stuff, which I like. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that game we've talked about in the past, I've heard it compared to Sid Meier's Pirates. I have never played Sid Meier's Pirates, so I don't know how accurate a comparison that is. But eventually, if we do find the time to do Windward, that would be delightful, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Yeah. One quick idea I had was some people actually wanted rankings on the podcast. I think at least 2 people in the survey suggested it. So I was thinking we could do a quick little ranking of the specialist crew. So I've got the
there's
thing up. Yeah, there's
like, smoke pot, fire pot, stink pot. What else was it? Chain shot.
Yeah, chain shot, exactly. Yep. Yeah, so I would say fire pot probably the best, the most part. And then I do have a soft spot for stink pot specialists because they're a cheaper version of like a canceling effect. So I think those are actually undervalued in general. And then from there, I suppose chain shot would be third, and then smoke pot fourth. I think chain shot is pretty much always passed on. I've almost never used them myself, and I've played a ton. Smoke pot is basically defensive strategy usually, or I would say smoke pot could be as good as chain shot, especially if it was 2 points instead of 3. Smoke pots, I think, shouldn't be more than 2. They're not an offensive ability at all. I think they could be 2 points, and smoke pots do have a niche role with fog hopping and home island raiding and stuff like that. So it is an interesting concept. But
I think smoke pot is better than chain shot because you can use it offensively and kind of fuzz up the direction in which your opponent can run.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's assuming you can actually put your opponent in a fog bank.
I don't know, actually. I should know that.
Or if you don't, Wolf does.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet you can. I don't think there's anything in the text about not being allowed to touch another ship.
I see it says that, though. It says, simply place in the center of a fog bank within S of the ship. It may not touch an island or any ship docked at an island.
Okay.
Only docked at. So.
Yeah, only a ship docked at an island.
Yeah. Huh.
So if you did want to throw off a gold runner, you could just throw them into a fog bank, and then they'd only have a small chance of exiting in the direction they want.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. I don't think I've tried that strategy before. That's a good point.
And you don't have to roll for it, whereas with a chain shot, you do have to roll to hit.
Yeah, I agree. I would say smoke pot is better than chain shot, definitely, even though it's more costly. Yeah.
It's more costly, but it has more uses, and it's more effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, chain shot, I think... Is chain shot 1 or 2 points?
2.
It should be 1. It's not that effective. It's like a really weak canceller.
Yeah. That's a perfect segue, because a question I had was, should specialists in general be cheaper? Because if you consider the cost of them compared to, like, captains, helmsmen, world hater, and, like, action generators, cancellers, all that stuff is better for not all that many more points. So I think most of the specialists could maybe go to 1 point. Maybe not fire pot specialists, because then they can be somewhat powerful. But I don't know if you think specialists should be cheaper, but I think it would be an interesting, house rule to play around with.
I don't think fire pots need to be cheaper. Stink pots can probably come in at 2. I want to say the same for smoke pots, and chain shot at 1.
Okay. Yeah, so like half and half. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, some of them should be cheaper. Others don't really need modification.
Cool. All right. Yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I guess that would be my question of the day, for lack of any other ones. If the audience thinks specialist crew in general should be cheaper or not. So, but you can have a question if you want, of course.
Mm-hmm. I don't actually have anything at the moment. I guess I do have a request of the day, and it's that more people involve themselves in the worst ships thread, because I'm really keen to see how offensively bad people can make their ships. Like seriously, come up with stuff that's outright ridiculous and unusable, and if possible, even find a way to use it in a game anyway, just cause.
Nice.
If somebody does manage to find a way to make like a really, really bad ship used in a game, then and post pictures of it, I would be delighted.
Yeah, maybe I'll try to bring out one of my 3 abominations in that case. I don't know when I'll play another physical game, but maybe I'll get around to it someday. Derek is wondering if Skull and Bones is better than Sea of Thieves. I have no idea.
I've played Sea of Thieves a little bit, the beta. Last I knew, everybody kind of burned out on it because there was nothing to do. Skull and Bones is a completely different kind of game, as far as I know. And from what I've seen, it's a lot more interesting and actually has some promise. So
nice. All right, cool.
Yeah, I'm going to watch the trailer after we finish with this, because there's a new one that just came out today.
Yep, cool. All right, that wraps up Pirate CSG Podcast number 25. We thank you for listening and watching, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks for the Fire and Steel set review. So have a good night, everybody.
Yep, the set review is going to be really interesting, and I'll have more energy for that one, and hopefully I won't be as negative sounding, because I feel like I've been a rather negative Nancy today.
That's all right. Well, we both were, to some degree. So, all right. See you guys later.